Gold and Black Live. It's the beginning and the ending of the 2016-17 season. There's a common denominator. Brian Newbert's one of the common denominators. But Mike Bobinski is too. Mike joined us 3 days into the job, and now he may feel like he's 333 days into the job, but welcome to the show, and thanks so much for taking the time. And he said he had 4 hours to spend with us, so we're going to do an extended version. I'm kidding. We're not. We're grateful that he can spend an hour with us. There's always a lot to talk about. And Mike, never a dull moment. You have had a whirlwind tour from the 1st of September to the 7th of April.
Yeah.
Can you put into words of what how it's all gone and what you're feeling at this moment?
It's gone fast. Is how it's gone, to be honest with you. But in fact, I was meeting with a family recruit and his family earlier today, and I talked to them a little bit about that. And I said, it's when you take a new job, there's always that period of uncertainty. What's it going to be like?
Yeah.
Is it what you thought it was going to be? And I can legitimately and 100% honestly say I've not had one moment of buyer's remorse or, oh my God, what have I done? There's none of that. Absolutely none of that. It's been terrific. Everyone has been so supportive, so welcoming, so willing to embrace whatever new direction, whatever new thoughts, whatever adjustments to how we're doing things. And some of what we're doing is just what we've been doing. But it's been a great 6.5 months or whatever that is these days. I've lost track of keeping count of just how long I've been here. But I can tell you it's been really, really good. We've got miles to go. We've got lots to get done. But early on, I would tell you, I think we've begun the process of heading things in a direction that feels like a good one for us here at Purdue.
What are you pleased to have accomplished in the past 6+ months?
Well, I haven't accomplished a whole heck of a lot, to be honest with you, Brian. It's because it is very much a process. I mean, working with an organization isn't a moment in time. It's a set of processes and occurrences and repetition and all that. Just like building a team, all those things are very much things that take place over the course of time. The single biggest thing, obviously, was the football transition.
Yeah.
That's the most visible and the single biggest thing that's happened. And I'm very pleased with the early returns on that. Having hired Coach Brom and worked with him, and he's hired the people around him in that program, and now watching them work these first couple months. Everything that I thought it would be under his leadership, it's been that and then some. To be honest with you, I think. I'm very enthused about the direction, about the tone that he and his staff have set around our program, and that's been very gratifying. And now, obviously, we've got, again, like in many things, we've got miles to go. We didn't get to where we are in football in a day. We earned it the old-fashioned way. We worked at it and found ourselves in a less than favorable spot, and so it's going to take some time to work out of that. But on the other hand, you've got to start somewhere, and I believe we've made that start. We have turned in a direction that's different and more positive, and you can see a focus and an approach that my sense and my honest opinion is we're going to see great success once that really fully takes hold and has a chance to mature a little bit.
Right. I think I read a story that you told Josh Pastner when you hired him at Georgia Tech that you might not win a game or something along those lines.
I never said that. That is an untruth that has been repeated now.
All right.
Anything that's been repeated 3 times, it becomes truth. And
That's true.
I never said. So it is absolutely not true.
Did you say something to that effect?
I told him it could be a long year. I said, you know what? We got our leading return scorer, I think, averaged 5 points a game. And everything else walked out the door. There were no proven players to speak of on the roster. I said, this is the ACC. It could be a long year. So I did tell Josh that, and I said, now, as I've asked when the Atlanta Journal-Constitution beat guy called me about that, he said, did you tell him that? I said, Ken, you know me better than that. I never handicap the race before you leave the post. I would never say you're not going to win a game or you can only win. I would never say, but I did legitimately tell him it could be a rough ride here for a little bit.
Well, you might know where I'm going with this.
I know exactly where you're going.
What did I tell Jeff?
Did I tell Jeff Brom he's not going to win a game? No, I did not tell him that. But obviously I was very honest with him about where I felt we were from a roster perspective, from a culture, from an expectation, all those things. And he knew a lot of that already. He had done his own research. He didn't come into this blind, as every candidate we spoke to had done their own work on where we were as a program. So yeah, I said, we're in the Big Ten. We've got challenging non-conference games next year. We got lots of things ahead of us, and it didn't. He was unfazed by it. He goes, I like a challenge. That's what. That's what I'm about. I'm about hard things and doing hard things and having an impact. And that's that's what I was looking for in a head coach, is somebody that was motivated by challenge and energized by it, not paralyzed by it. And that's who he is. And he's not afraid of it. And I know we start off with with a tough and a big game against the Heisman Trophy winner and all those kind of things. And you don't see him at all. Not that he's unconcerned. It's a game, so we're always concerned about playing the game. But he's not like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? That's just not how he's wired. It's like, okay, that's what's in front of us. We've got to find a way to meet that. And he's sort of that matter of fact approach to everything. And that I really like that about him. I really do. I think that's permeating through our guys too. Hey, here's what you've got to do. Find a way to do it.
Yeah, and I think that's points are well taken. And when you look at basketball, and one of the things that we want to hit on is just the kind of season that Matt Painter had. But tonight's a big night also for Purdue, because here you got a guy is a finalist and has a great chance to win the National Player of the Year and the Wooden Award. Yeah. What has that meant? I mean, you've been around basketball. You hired had to make hires at big ones at Xavier, at Georgia Tech. And now you've inherited a basketball program that's pretty stable, but you've got a great storyline in Caleb Swanigan. Put that into your perspective of what you see there.
Yeah, I think Caleb and his whole story has been told really in really marvelous and effective and inspiring ways around the country by a lot of different outlets. And I've had multiple people around the country just call me after they've seen, whether it was on CBS News or CBS Sports or ESPN or all the different places where his story's been told. And like, wow, I can't believe, what this is really special. This is something. And I said, and it is. I mean, it really is. And first and foremost, it's a tribute to him, to Roosevelt, to everybody that's been part of him making that transformation in his life. But from a pure Purdue perspective, I mean, it is one of those things that has been a profile raiser for us. It's allowed us to reach into a different realm of consciousness and to have a higher level of exposure and sort of let our brand and our name be out there in ways that with great benefit due to Caleb and what he's accomplished and who he is. It's been really good for Purdue. There's no doubt about that. It's been a great thing. But honestly, most importantly, it's been great for him. And it has. The thing about him that is most impressive is that he's so grounded through all this. I mean, he's not, not everybody in his circumstance can and has kept it together the way he has, so consistently and carried himself so professionally and so responsibly. And I mean, you couldn't draw it up much better. So it's, it is a great story for Caleb Swanigan, but equally a great story for Purdue.
You've been involved in competitive athletics your whole life, even back to your glorious pitching days at Notre Dame.
Oh boy!
How many guys though have you seen like him? I mean, in all your athletic travels. I mean, anybody that you would compare him to from any of your travels or guys you've been around?
Yeah, I mean, not direct correlation, but elements of Caleb. When I was at Xavier, we had a couple players. When I first got there, James Posey was on our roster, and James went on to have a long 12, 13-year NBA career. Kind of bounced here and there, but managed to stick in the league for a long time. And what struck me about James was he was the first guy in the gym. He was the last guy to leave the gym. He would be there on weekends. He would always be grabbing a teammate or a manager, say, hey, can you rebound for me? Can you do this? Can you do that? I mean, just the incredible work ethic and the desire to make himself a great player. Caleb's got every bit of that. I mean, he is the hardest working guy in the gym. I mean, he's our best player, and he's our hardest working player. And that, boy, from a coaching perspective, it doesn't get much better than that. When your best guy is your most dedicated and committed guy, that's pretty strong. So that is a very much of a similarity. We also had a young man named Lenny Brown who came from the D.C., Baltimore area, and Caleb's background is a little different, but Lenny came from challenging in lots of ways circumstances, and to see him grow during his time at Xavier from a guy who really had things gone, had someone not embraced him and taken him in, his life could have gone in a very bad direction, and who knows where it might have headed, because that was the environment that he was in. And, he came to a place like Xavier, and folks took care of him. And to his great credit, he was willing to engage in that, and he allowed himself to grow and to be interested in a different path for his life. And watching that was, and that was more, Caleb's is different, a different story,
sure,
but elements of that same process of going from a direction that was really not particularly positive to one now that's incredibly positive. Obviously in Caleb's case, he's got infinite possibilities in front of him, whether it be basketball or otherwise. He's just a really bright, sharp, talented young man, and he's gonna do his basketball thing, whatever that might be, going forward. But beyond that, he's gonna do lots of really good things.
I wanted to ask you about, I guess, the pursuit of the next Caleb Swanigans.
Yeah.
As smooth a transition as that is.
Yeah.
You've always
very.
been regarded as a very recruiting-minded athletic
Yep.
director. What steps, if any, can you take, I guess, from the top to make Purdue as attractive a destination as possible from a recruiting perspective? And what do you tell your coaches in terms of what sort of expectations you have from a recruiting perspective?
Sure. Well, recruiting is, without a doubt, the beginning and in some cases the entire story as to whether or not you're going to be successful in programs. You can coach, you can certainly coach them up and develop talent, and that's a part of it for sure. But if you don't start with some reasonable level of skill and ability and potential, you'll never get to where you should be. But so we talk a lot with our staff about how they recruit, what is their approach, how do they present Purdue? Are we making sure that we focus on our strengths? We've got lots of great things that are here, and to never ever downsell or negative recruit ourselves. You don't want to lead with your weaknesses. You want to accentuate your strengths, and we've got lots of them. And I think making sure that we're effective in how we present is really a big deal. We've added resources, and we're going to continue to add resources in the graphic design and video area, just to make sure that we're communicating, we're backing up what they're doing with the right kind of communication pieces and channels, and making sure that we're very current, and nobody's doing that any better than we are as we move forward. I think we want to make sure that we arm them with all of that, and then from a pure student-athlete experience perspective, making sure that our nutrition program is really good, and all the things that sort of make up an experience today, that we don't lack for any of that we can present a really complete package to any prospective athlete, regardless of sport. We've got a great platform, first of all in Purdue, second of all in the Big Ten. You've got two great things to sell. From a Purdue perspective, you got this great, powerful, tremendous academic institution with nearly 500,000 alums. It's just a really substantive place to offer up, and with a great environment, with people that care, not only when they're here and when you're having your experience here at Purdue, but when you leave, people care about your Purdue connection. And and being able to communicate that effectively and make that real to young people, so they understand that, hey, when you come here, you're not just coming for your college piece of this. I mean, you're joining something that's going to be with you and be a part of you for a long time, and that's not always the easiest thing to communicate. But you know what, for young folks of substance and that have some level of understanding about them, it's a really powerful thing. I mean, being at the Final Four, being at Kansas City, being in Milwaukee, seeing our former basketball players all kind of gravitating and hovering still around the program. It's a cool thing. Yeah. It's a very cool thing. And the very best programs in the country, that's exactly what happens. I mean, you go to Carolina in the summer, and they're all back there playing pickup. I mean, that's what happens at the big time programs. We want to make sure that we present ourselves that way. And we need to, the other thing, Brian, that I would tell you, and you've heard me say this before, I'm sure, one of the really nice features about being back in the Midwest and being at Purdue and all, is that there's a Midwestern humility and all that about all of us, about who we are, what we're about, and that's a really good thing until it's not. There's a point where too much humility becomes invisible, and so I think just striking that right balance of telling the really good things and telling our story in a more aggressive sort of. And I hate the word self-promoting, because that's a negative connotation. But you know what? When recruiting is sales, and that's not the time to be humble. When you're selling, when you're trying to close a deal, whatever that might be, you know, you've got to be able to to have a little swagger about you, to have a little sense of, hey, this is who we are, this is what we got to offer, this is a good thing, and this is a great opportunity for you as a young person to join a tremendous program.
From a human resources perspective, you know,
Yeah.
recruiting is becoming a manpower deal
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
You've seen sports under your leadership. I know, like, football's gotten some extra staffers.
Yep.
What's kind of your, I guess, philosophy on staffing and just
Well,
the sheer number of bodies available?
Sure. I would tell you that I'm a realist when it comes to that.
Yeah.
I'm not a person of excess. I don't like having people that don't have a full day's work. I mean, that's just not my. That just offends me at some basic level when you've got people on top of people, or I need an assistant to do what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't believe in that. But on the other hand, I want to make sure that we have every resource that we need to be in the game, to be effective, and to not be caught short because we just don't have the manpower to do something. So that's, you know, when we did the football transition, one of the things that I was asked by the president, by President Daniels, and by our board, is to say, Mike, what does our organization need to look like, you know, in order to succeed, to compete at the highest level? And so I did lots of research and looked around and sort of sketched out what I felt an effective support structure might be. Not the biggest one in the country by any stretch, certainly not the smallest one in the country, but one that I felt would work, that would be effective, where we wouldn't lack for nothing, and have the horsepower that we need to get things done. And that's what we're in the process. And we've already assembled some of those pieces. There are more yet to come as we work through this. But you know, the football staff, sort of one thing at a time. They needed some folks right off the bat. During that initial recruiting period, all the assistant coaches were basically doing it. And as we transition out of spring ball and they get to take a little bit of a deep breath, we'll continue to add a couple of other pieces to that mix and really grow that organization into one that I think will be very, very, very effective and very adequate from a personnel perspective. You know, it'll give us everything we need. You know, as we look at our other sports, you know, football's different. Football's a numbers game, you know, massive numbers game, so it's a different dynamic. But even some of our others, you know, in our basketball, is making sure that we've got, you know, the right bodies and the right number and sort of the right focus. You know, we have personnel and effort and capacity where we need it. And so I'm talking to both Matt and Sharon about that as we go through the end of the year process.
You know, Sean Miller, had an opportunity to talk with him, you coach at the University of Arizona, that you worked with at Xavier, about your role as a mentor, and that you were pretty unique from that standpoint. But, you know, Matt Painter is going to be making a big hire here with an assistant coach situation where, you know, you need a certain type of person. What role do you play in that? Obviously, Matt has earned the ability to make his call, but you have a lot of experience, especially in basketball. What role do you play in that?
Well, you know, the only role, the right role for me to play, I think, in someone in my position is to make sure that we have every bit of conversation that Matt needs in order to sort of get his thoughts where they need to be. And you know, Matt's a really smart guy. He's an experienced coach. He knows Purdue. He knows our environment. He knows everything about our program inside and out. But what we've done, we've had some great conversations about sort of staff composition and complementary skills and personalities, and what would each position really want to deliver in a perfect world. And you know, as he's sort of culled through the field of prospective candidates, you know, we've continued to talk about, hey, here's what this person brings, and here's what I see in this individual, and how they might fit with what we've got right now, or how I might reorganize what we're doing to make it most effective. And so it's, you know, to me, it's more just of being a sounding board, being a resource, being able to offer my own just thoughts as someone who's part of running an organization, which is what Matt's doing in his world. He's running the basketball organization. You know, just offering the way I've gone about those same things, and then allowing he and I just bounce things back and off each other, and it's been great. I mean, he takes it very seriously. He understands. You know, he's only got 3 full-time assistant coaches. You can't miss on any. You know, they all need to stand up and be accounted for here. And obviously, when you lose a guy like Jack Owens, you know, really talented, really mature veteran coach, knows what, you know, produces in all levels, you know, in all aspects. He's a great on the floor coach. He's a terrific recruiter, great with our players. He just does a lot of things. When you lose strength, you've got to replace it with strength. And so that's clearly the bottom line, is making sure we find somebody strong enough to fill that hole.
All right, well, we bought him a bottle of water before he came here, so he would have time to drink it. He's had a chance to
glad right
go
now.
hard for
There we
20
go.
minutes. We're gonna take a 2-minute break, bring in Stacy Clarity, and we'll talk some Purdue football and what's all going on with that. And then that extra 3-hour segment we were talking about, Brian will come back and talk more basketball, because this could go on.
That's like 4 questions.
Yeah, I know, that topic goes on. We'll take a 2-minute break and bring in Stacy and go for segment 2 of Gold and Black Live.